All right, let's jump right into this. Today's explainer takes us on a seriously mind-bending journey. We're looking at source material that basically asks us to completely rethink something we interact with, every single day: water. But the material we're unpacking today, it's not looking at water as just a basic liquid or a simple H2O to quench your thirst. No, it presents this incredibly provocative thesis. What if water is actually a conscious medium? Like, what if it's literally a cosmic bridge connecting hidden dimensions? It's a massive premise that mashes up ancient theology with cutting-edge quantum physics. So, grab your focus because we are diving straight into the deep end.
To wrap our heads around this, we really have to start at the foundational anchor. The source heavily roots its whole argument in this profound Quranic concept, which claims that water is intrinsically linked to the actual act of creation. The research points out how so many divine miracles and ancient mysteries in theological texts revolve completely around water. From the splitting of the sea for Moses to the water that miraculously saved Ishmael in the desert. In this view, these aren't just historical anecdotes, they're positioned as actual clues, pointing directly to water's extraordinary unseen nature.
And it's fascinating how the source maps these grand theological ideas onto specific, real-world locations. Because we aren't just talking about your average wells or rivers here. The hypothesis proposes that the mysteriously unchanging chemical composition of Mecca's Zamzam well, or that metaphysical, alive feeling people report at the Spring of Siloam in Jerusalem, and even the untraceable deep aquifers of the Nile and Euphrates rivers, well, it argues they're all evidence of something way beyond traditional geology. The source suggests these spots might actually function as gateways, literally places where our physical world intersects with an unseen realm.
Let's actually zoom in on the Zamzam well for a second to see exactly how they build this argument. This well is surprisingly shallow. It's only about 30 meters, so roughly 100 feet deep, and it sits right in the middle of solid, extremely hard granite in a desert that basically never sees rain. But here's the kicker. It has provided this continuous, endless supply of water for centuries, without ever drying up or changing its mineral composition. For a shallow well and solid rock to pull that off, the source argues it's physically impossible unless there's an otherworldly dimensional source constantly recharging it.
From those massive geographical mysteries, the source takes a really radical pivot. It zooms all the way down to the microscopic level and poses this stunning rhetorical question: can water listen, feel, and remember? The theory suggests that, hey, if water really is a dimensional bridge, it has to possess some level of consciousness, right?
To back up this wild claim of conscious water, the source leans into the famous and, definitely controversial experiments of Japanese scientist Dr. Masaru Emoto. Let's walk through exactly how this went down. Step 1. Researchers spoke specific words directly to glasses of water. We're talking either expressions of love and gratitude or hate and anger. Step 2. They froze that water at super low temperatures. And then step 3. They looked at the resulting ice crystals under a microscope. The researchers used this whole sequence to passionately argue that water physically receives and actually stores human intention.
And the results of that experiment perfectly illustrate the source's claim. When the water was exposed to positive words, it formed these incredibly beautiful, complex, diamond-like geometric crystals. But the water exposed to negative words, it turned into these broken, ugly, just completely chaotic physical structures. This is a crucial piece of evidence for their overarching theory. They argue water isn't just some blind, deaf chemical. It actively alters its physical structure based on vibrational frequencies. And the research asks, if it can store information like that, what else is it capable of?
Which brings us right back to the macro scale. The source transitions by looking at ancient texts through this totally new lens. Specifically, they reference the Hadith of Tamim al-Dari. It's this historical account where sailors get caught in a massive sea storm and eventually drift to an uncharted, unmapped island. There, they encounter a prophesied apocalyptic figure, the Dajjal. The theory suggests that, well, with today's advanced satellite mapping, a whole island can't just hide, right? So they hypothesized that the storm wasn't just weather, it was water acting as a dimensional veil, literally pulling those sailors into a parallel dimension.
So, the huge question is, does anything like this dimensional veil exist in our modern world? The source points firmly to the Atlantic Ocean. Yep, specifically the Bermuda Triangle. They rely heavily on the sheer physical impossibility of what happens there. We're talking entire squadrons, like Flight 19, vanishing without a trace. Massive steel ships like the USS Cyclops, disappearing with over 300 people on board. And the absolute key detail they emphasize, zero wreckage, bodies, or oil were ever found. The ocean always spits out debris eventually. But here, thousands of tons of metal seemingly just evaporated.
To explain these crazy disappearances, the source pulls data from oceanographers and aviation researchers, highlighting a recurring phenomenon from the final radio calls of doomed pilots, something called electronic fog. Pilots would report their compasses going absolutely crazy, the sky completely changing color, and finding themselves trapped in this bizarre mist. The source defines this not as regular weather, no, but as the physical manifestation of severe, physics-defying magnetic anomalies brewing deep down in the ocean.
Now, to explain how a physical ocean could somehow create a dimensional portal, we've got to make a major paradigm shift. We have to completely ditch the traditional view. You know, that classic Einsteinian idea that space-time is like a 2D fabric stretched out high above us in the stars. Instead, the research brings in cutting-edge quantum hydrodynamics, specifically the Superfluid Vacuum Theory. This posits that space isn't empty at all. It's actually a 3D subatomic fluid that surrounds us absolutely everywhere.
To make that incredibly complex quantum physics a bit more accessible, the research offers this beautiful metaphor. We are like fish swimming in a cosmic ocean. Just like a fish is completely surrounded by water, above, below, left, right, we are constantly immersed in this invisible subatomic cosmic fluid. The space-time fabric isn't just way up in the cosmos, it's woven into the air we breathe, and crucially for this whole argument, it's woven into the deep waters of our oceans. And because this cosmic fluid permeates our oceans, the theory introduces this heavy but totally vital scientific concept, analogue gravity. Okay, stick with me here. This refers to the astonishing mathematical equivalence between the fluid dynamics of earthly water vortices, so giant whirlpools, and the gravitational pull of cosmic black holes out in space. Really think about that for a second. The exact same math applies. What a black hole does in deep dark space, a massive whirlpool might literally be doing deep down in our oceans.
So here is the exact step-by-step theoretical mechanism the source proposes for what's happening in the Bermuda Triangle. First, a massive oceanic vortex forms, spinning with just unimaginable energy and pressure. Second, because of that analog gravity and the fluid nature of spacetime, this vortex actually physically rips a tear in the superfluid vacuum surrounding it. Third, a mysterious substance called exotic matter swoops in to stabilize the tear. And finally, boom, a traversable dimensional portal is formed right in the middle of the ocean.
Let's clarify that third step real quick. Exotic matter is a theoretical material that has negative energy. Physics dictates that if you tear a hole in spacetime, it's going to instantly collapse under its own gravity unless something with negative energy props it open. It's essentially a cosmic doorstop. Now, the source fully acknowledges that mainstream science hasn't actually discovered or synthesized the exotic matter in a lab yet, but the research firmly views it as a functioning cosmic reality, the exact key that keeps these aquatic portals open long enough for, say, a ship or plane to pass through.
Okay, so if a ship falls into one of these oceanic tears, where does it actually go? The source presents two mind-blowing possibilities based on theoretical physics. Option 1 is a localized portal. This is essentially a wormhole acting as a shortcut. A ship goes in and instantly pops out on the other side of our planet, or maybe somewhere else within our own universe. But option 2 is way grander, an interdimensional portal. If the pressure is immense enough, the vortex might pierce the very bottom of our cosmic ocean, acting as a gateway leading entirely to a parallel universe or a completely unseen dimension.
Bringing the whole argument full circle, the source connects this cutting-edge physics right back to ancient theology. It interprets the Quranic story of the prophet Moses meeting the mysterious figure Khidr. In that story, a dead fish miraculously comes back to life and, quote, takes its way into the sea, forming a tunnel. The research views this not as a magical fable, but as literal historical evidence of dimensional tunneling through aquatic gateways. It even suggests that figures like Khidr might have actually used these aquatic portals to travel between multiverses.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of this explainer. The theory posits that modern laboratories, with all their billions of dollars spent researching quantum hydrodynamics and analog gravity, are honestly just playing catch-up. They're just now finding the mathematical equations for phenomena that ancient texts described centuries ago. It leaves us with this profound, really paradigm-shifting thought. The next time you look at the ocean, are you just looking at water, or are you staring at the doorways to other universes? So, what do you think? Is water the universe's ultimate hidden gateway? Let that sink in.